We were going to do chapter 1.7 in 2 days and then chapter 1.8 for 1 day, but I realized that if we can just squeeze chapter 1.7 into 1 day, then I actually get to give you a test review for the end of the week, because remember, your test is Friday. I hope you've started studying and looking through your notes and making sure you're good at what you need to be good at. Also making up any quizzes that you understand better now so you can get some of your points back. Other than that, this lesson here covers 3 topics. The first thing we're going to talk about is what like terms are. Second thing we're going to talk about is the distributive property of multiplication and the fact that there is also a distributive property of division. First, we're going to take some time to consider how we work with like terms. Again, whenever we are combining 2 or more terms with similar variable attachments, we simplify them as writing one term. That is what they mean when they say combine like terms. So looking at this, we have 3 terms, 6x, 8x, 3y. The like terms in this problem are 6x and 8x because both of them have a x on them. Alright, 3y is not a like term, and so what you do is, instead of writing 2 of these, you put 6 and 8 together to make 14 x's, and then you bring down your plus 3y. That is how you combine like terms. That's all. Alright, looking at the second one, you have 7x squared plus 3x plus 5x squared. Now don't just assume that x's make these like terms. They have to have exactly the same thing. In this case, the 2 that have exactly the same thing are 7x squared and 5x squared, which when you put them together you end up with 12x squared, and then the plus 3x just comes down. And again, that's as far as you can go because you can't put non-like terms together. Alright, this is the most tricky one you're going to see, and again, everything has to be exact. I know we see x's and y's on everything, but this has 2 x's and 3 y's. This has 3 x's and 2 y's. That also has 3 x's and 2 y's, which means your like terms are these 2. So this can just come down for the ride, 2x to the second, y to the third, and then these 2 make plus 9, x to the third, y squared. The key thing you have to remember is, and notice, is I'm not changing the labels on those. Some people put x and x together and put x squared. That does not happen. You should not do that. Some people take x squared and put it together and make x to the fourth. Again, that is not how you're supposed to do it. Just make sure you're aware of that before you make any major mistakes, especially on Friday's test, because there is no quiz to prepare you for this test, which is why I want you to have a review day in between to get any mistakes out of your system. Keep in mind, again, the variable attachment does not change in this process, and that is pretty much how you combine like terms. Next thing we want to do is view how the distributive property works through multiplication. I like to view the distributive property as a person, let's say Joe, who doesn't know 2 people, let's say Sam and Jim. And what happens is these 2 know each other because they're in parentheses. I always use parentheses to indicate friends. So Sam and Jim already know each other, and Joe wants to meet them. And what happens is, when they go to meet, you understand common formal politeness. Joe will shake hands with Sam, and, just means another one, Joe will shake hands with Jim. And that's pretty much how the distributive property works. It's all the handshakes that go on when the person outside the group meets everybody on the inside of the group. And of course it gets a little deeper than that, but that's the general idea you need to remember. So whenever we see this, in this case 3 is going to meet 5x, and 3 is going to meet 6. Now we know how to multiply these things. 3 times 5x would be 15x, and that's how you multiply with variables. The number becomes 15, the x comes down, and then 3 and 6 make 18. That is how you finish distributive property through multiplication, and that is all. Again, 3 meets 5x, 3 meets 6, that becomes 15x, that becomes 18. You cannot put anything together because there are no like terms. That's as far as you can go. And you might want to write some of these down just to make sure you have them from when you go to the computer. But other than that, that is it. So here, 2 meets 5x squared, and 2 meets, make sure you see this as negative 8x, and 2 meets 3. After that, you simply multiply. 2 times 5x squared is 10 with x squared. 2 times negative 8, as you know, is negative 16 with an x. 2 times 3 is positive 6. What you should notice is that the work necessary after grouping these things up is pretty easy. You just have to make sure you group them up right. Most people don't remember to put a negative on that 8, and it causes a whole bunch of problems. You will also see problems with just a negative outside. And again, what that means is I want to put negative meeting them. What I would do is either put a 1 there or recognize that the negative means opposite of. So the opposite of 8x squared is negative 8x squared. The opposite of negative 4x is a positive 4x. The opposite of positive 7 is a negative 7. And that is all you have to do whenever there is just a negative on the outside. Alright, there is no multiplication, or 8 times negative 1 is negative 8. Negative 4 times negative 1 is positive 4. 7 times negative 1 is negative 7. Also works, but again, the easiest way to deal with negatives is just to remember it means opposite of everything. So you switch everything on the inside around. The last type of distributive property problem you're going to see is like this, where 2 meets 4x and 2 meets negative 3. Make sure you follow that. And in this case, keep in mind this is a negative 3 meets 2x and negative 3 meets 7. Again, 2 meets 4x, 2 meets negative 3, negative 3 meets 2x, negative 3 meets 7. Now we just multiply them out. 2 times 4x is 8x, 2 times negative 3 is minus 6, negative 3 times 2x is negative 6x, negative 3 times 7 is negative 21. What you should notice now is that we have like terms that can be put together. These other ones did not, but this one does. 8x minus 6x is 2x. Negative 6 and negative 21 both being constants make negative 27, and that is all that you will be asked to do in terms of distributing through multiplication. So again, get that down, ask your questions. I know there are some people who are lost and you're waiting for me to come and get you, but in high school it doesn't work like that. You need to speak up for yourself and get assistance, or waste your time and go ahead and fail the class, but I would say it's easier just to speak up and get assistance. Because I'm not going to stop you. I have to teach you to speak up for yourself, otherwise you won't be successful anytime soon until you learn to speak up for yourself. Last thing we're going to do is finish by considering how our distributive property works with division. Keep in mind this is a division sign, so it's 8x plus 5 all being divided by 4. And really what we're going to do is take and split that division sign. So what we do is we rewrite it as 8x over 4 plus 5 over 4. That's how you distribute that 4 underneath them. But afterwards you have to make sure you reduce and simplify what you can. 8 divided by 4 is 2 with an x attached. I can't do anything with 5/4. That is my answer, 2x plus 5/4. If you're unsure, remember to take your calculator, type the fraction in, 5/4, math, enter to make sure that that's as low as it can be, and of course if it matches, then that means that's as low as it can be. If I were to did 10 divided by 12 and did math, enter, notice 10/12 reduces to 5/6. So again, use your tools to make sure you get those things right, otherwise you're missing silly points, and you don't want to miss silly points. Here again we're going to split it. We get 10x over negative 4, remember that's a negative 4, always a plus. Take the negative with the number negative 12 over negative 4. 10 over 4 reduces to be 5 over 2, so since there's one negative, it is negative 5 over 2x, or negative 5x over 2, whatever one you want to do. Just remember that x either goes on top or beside the line. Negative and negative make a positive, and 12 divided by 4 is 3. That is how you work out the distributive property with division. Alright. Last one, 15 minus 6x over 2, again split it at the sign. 15 over 2 plus negative 6x over 2. We can't do anything with 15 over 2, so it stays the same. This is negative, and 6 divided by 2 is 3. Don't forget the x is attached. And that would be how we do our distributive property with division. Now you might be thinking that I went kind of fast, but that's partly because you're supposed to be taking notes and asking questions. Also, it's because I'd rather have you learn. If you remember me saying you learn more from putting something together than reading instructions, you are going to learn more about this from doing the work instead of watching me work it out and take notes. So I try to keep my video under 10 minutes, which it looked like I did. So use the rest of the time, which is about 30 to 40 minutes worth of practice, to make sure you are getting ready for this stuff, and make sure you are getting ready for your test. Today's Math XL has a mix of new work with some review problems. Again, be sure to work on this assignment first, not the one from Friday. Afterwards, you want to go back and finish anything up from before today. That's any day you do it. Start with the day's work here, and then go backwards from there and make up other stuff. Keep in mind your homework grades go in at the end of the week, so if for some reason you don't finish these things this week, you're going to have a low homework grade for your Math Excel, which is again going to pull your grade down. So being that you can mess up as much as you need to right now, you still have infinite attempts on all your questions until the 13th of October. But after this chapter is over, actually I guess after about another couple weeks, you'll only have 3 attempts per question. But for right now, as long as you're willing to work, you can get 100% on your Math Excel. So just make sure you do that. Other than that, go ahead and get to work, and good luck.